From Washington, the McLaughlin Group, the American original. For over 3 decades, the sharpest minds, best sources, hardest talk.
Issue 1, Ujambo Obama.
President Obama will get a warm greeting when he arrives in Kenya, a nation of 45 million people. Ujambo, hello, in Swahili. As we go to press, the president is scheduled to arrive in Nairobi, Kenya's capital, where he will meet the country's controversial president, Uhuru Kenyatta.
Until recently, Mr. Kenyatta was under charges from the International Criminal Court, ICC, for funding political violence in 2007-2008. Those charges were dropped late last year after Kenya refused to cooperate with international investigators. President Kenyatta has also drawn international disapproval for his stance against homosexuality, which is illegal in Kenya. Still, Kenya is a key American ally against the Somalia-based Al-Shabaab, jihadist terrorist group. In recent years, Al-Shabaab has killed hundreds of Kenyans in attacks on malls, universities, and quarries. But Mr. Obama's trip isn't ending in Kenya. The president will now travel north to Ethiopia, a nation of 96 million. Ethiopia's capital, Addis Ababa, is the new home of the African Union Secretariat, focused on expanding trade and stability. President Obama believes the 14-year-old organization can improve many lives.
Question, what is the reason for President Obama's trip to Kenya? Pat Buchanan.
Well, there are a number of reasons, John. His father was from there, and it's going back, in effect, like Jack Kennedy going back to Ireland. Also, to support Kenya in that battle, Al-Shabaab did that horrible massacre in that mall, and he wants to stand with the African folks who are standing with the United States against terror. And he's also up against the Chinese in a sense that the Chinese are moving deeply into Africa. They got enormous sums of wealth that they've gotten from trade with the United States. And I think he's trying to match that and say your future should be with the West. And when you sup with the devil, meaning the Chinese, bring a long spoon.
What's the rest of the policy objective of the trip?
Well, I think you look at these two countries that he's visiting, and both have booming economies. Accompanying the president on Air Force One, you've got investors, you've got a congressional delegation. I think the president is looking on Africa as a continent that is going to come into its own. And visiting these two countries, aside from the obvious roots expedition into Kenya, is part of the way the president addresses diplomacy. You don't just talk to your friends, you talk to people who are not necessarily on your side. And he's doing that here. He'll get some criticism for it. And as Pat said, rivalry with China is also a big element.
Well, the reason for it principally is trade. And trade between Africa and the U.S. amounts to $73 billion a year. How does that compare to trade between Africa and the EU or China? I ask you.
Well, the United States is trading a lot more with the European Union. I mean, the size of our trade at the moment with Africa is very small based on the size of the African continent and the growing economies there. South Africa is another example. I think the president, yes, both Eleanor and Pat mentioning that about the China angle, about struggling for geopolitical power. I also think there's an issue in that China element that President Obama wants to say to African nations, look, China is offering you a huge amount of investment, but what we can offer you is the rule of law in terms of our contracts, that we will do what we say. We won't essentially try and screw you, because the Chinese will. And also, I think if you look at that security dynamic, with the president trying to build up nations like Kenya so that they can deal with terrorist threats like Al-Shabaab instead of the United States. Again, Al-Shabaab has committed a number of attacks as well as the Westgate Mall attack, and so there's that element that he wants to prevail.
Trade promotion is the principal objective, if not the principal objective of Obama's visit. Would you support that?
Yes, but there's another dimension to it, which seems to me is perfectly understandable. His father was from Kenya. He's sort of re-engaging with the origins of his family life.
He didn't spend any time with them.
I know, but you're there in the country. You're going to get a feel for it. They're going to get a feel for you. It seems to me that's perfectly normal and natural.
Well, he did visit his homeland once before as a much younger man, and this is his 4th trip to the continent as president, although once was for Mandela's funeral and once he was on ground like 24 hours. So I think he is sort of making up for lost time, and in this last 18 months of his presidency, he's not going to be worried about people in America making fun of him for actually supposedly
think
having
also
been
now
born
that
in
the
Kenya. I mean, that's all in the
The
past, and
ICC
it's
case
silly.
is resolved now, so he feels
So
that.
73 billion in trade, John, is pretty much peanuts
Right.
as far as the United States of America is concerned. Good heavens, we got more than a $300 billion trade deficit.
What's your figure?
With China alone.
What's your figure?
Right.
You said, what'd you say, $73 billion?
140 billion a year. African-Chinese trade was 200 billion a year. But that may change substantially given the economic slowdown in China.
But I'm saying the United States trade with the European Union,
He's
with
playing the
Canada,
long
with
game.
Mexico.
The president is looking to the longer term.
Well,
correct-
China's looking for the big
That's a
project.
very
I'm
they
correcting
wanna-
that. The African-U.S. amounts to 73 billion a year.
That's what I said.
Well,
Exit question. In Ethiopia, same-sex relationships are punishable by up to 15 years in prison. Should President Obama speak out on behalf of gay and lesbian rights in Addis Ababa? Yes or no?
I think he should speak in general ways, but if you really press the issue, he's going to get a backlash.
he's going to speak in general ways about human rights, and he's going to make his views known in private as well.
Yeah, those beliefs are a product in many cases of tribal culture, and anything he says is not going to necessarily have strategic effect.
I agree. I mean, I think this is something he's going to stay away from, and he'll find other ways to, in a sense, suggest a little bit more than actually just really
Behind
going
the
after the
scenes.
issue, yeah.
I think he's going to stay away from it. Issue 2. I'm here to stay.
He's a war hero because he was captured. I like people that weren't captured, okay? I hate to tell you. Do you agree with that? He's a war hero because he was captured, okay?
Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump is questioning Senator John McCain's war record. Senator McCain is a former Navy pilot who was shot down over Hanoi, North Vietnam in October 1967. Then Lieutenant Commander McCain was tortured for 5.5 years. Now Mr. Trump is catching fire for his comment. Here's Senator Marco Rubio.
It's not just absurd, it's offensive, it's ridiculous, and I do think it is a disqualifier as commander-in-chief.
GOP presidential hopeful Rick Perry called Trump's comments, quote, a toxic mix of demagoguery and nonsense, unquote, revealing, quote, the cancer of Trumpism, end quote. Trump attacked Perry in kind.
He put glasses on so people will think he's smart. And it just doesn't work. You know, people can see through the glasses.
But now Mr. Trump has established a hotline, 855-VETS-352, for veterans to offer suggestions on reforming the Veterans Affairs Administration. Mr. Trump pledged that if elected president, he will take care of veteran complaints, quote, very quickly and efficiently, like a world-class businessman can do, but a politician has no clue, end quote.
Was Mr. Trump Machiavellian or was he ill-informed when talking about McCain hero status? If something else, what is it, Pat Buchanan?
No, I think Trump was badly served here. Look, he never said he was not a hero. He said, well, he got captured. He made a foolish, inartful statement. Then 4 times he said he was a hero. And the press jumped on him and said he's got to get out of the race. Other Republicans got to get out of the race. He's a figure in disgrace. And he defied them. And all week long, he's gotten bigger crowds than anyone. The country knows what's being done here, which is the political establishment is appalled by Trump and frightened by Trump. And they want to basically drive him out of the race, John. And the vast, or not the majority, but a big plurality of Americans, or a large number of Americans, want to see him in the race, and he's doing very well.
If
He's
he
number
wants
one.
to play with the big boys and girls, he should be able to answer criticism.
Sure.
And to say the press is piling on him, the press is misinterpreting him, is nonsense. He loves every minute. He loves being in the spotlight. And McCain, not only the facts that John just put on the screen, but the fact that he was offered early release a number of times and wouldn't jump the line on his fellow POWs. That to me makes him a hero.
look,
and there are problems with the VA. Yes, do John McCain and Lindsey Graham? Is it their
think
fault?
McCain should have called
no.
all his-
And
All
look at the
McCain
VA.
called
look,
his guys a bunch of crazies.
Look at the veteran groups. Look at the veteran groups who they are defending, and they're not defending Donald Trump.
McCain was brutally tortured. If there is a notion of anything in American society society, patriotism, it's the notion you spend 5.5 years getting tortured when your dad and your grandfather were both senior admirals. That notion of service, that was a disgrace of Trump
All right,
to do
hold
that,
on
and
for-
it was pathetic.
Hold on for a minute. McCain was put into solitary confinement for 2 years. He was tortured. They used rope bindings to put him into a prolonged, painful positions and severely beat him every 2 hours, all while he was suffering from dysentery. His right leg was re-injured, his ribs were cracked, some teeth were broken at the gum line, and his left arm was refractured, lying in his own waste. His spirit
John,
was
no one
broken.
denies that McCain served his country honorably and well and went through hell as did those
Yeah.
other POWs. My point is, Trump did not say he was not a hero. And secondly, why are people using this incident a week ago? They keep pounding him and pounding him and pounding him, but that's to drive him out of the race.
No, they're pounding him
Oh,
because what
please.
he said was loathsome.
Yes.
How long
And
do you keep
his
pounding him?
and his campaign is attracting people because there are a lot of people who want to give the middle finger to the entire political
Article 2,
establishment.
Section
I
2,
think you're probably one of them.
Commander-in-Chief.
Yeah.
And-
It matters.
Let me
Look,
add.
the political establishment, should they be doing this, trying to drive a guy out of the race?
For what he said?
look-
Do you think this is a way to distinguish yourself
I
if
don't
you're the
think it's a-
president?
you know,
Then he deserves the criticism he gets. He's earned every bit of it.
Should he be driven out of the race?
As
Let
far
me
as
add
I'm
a bit
concerned,
to,
What he's
uh,
talking
public
about
is gonna
driving him
drive
out of the race.
The public will drive him out.
The public will
the
and should
cables
drive him
love
out of
him.
the
He
race.
drives up ratings. Nobody's trying to get him out of the race. He's
Why
going to
do you
get
think
himself
he's-
out of the
why
race.
do you think
Excuse
he's
me,
number one
excuse
among
me.
Republicans?
I want to add
and
something
Hopkins.
to John McCain in prison. First of all, there's a statue of McCain that has been erected. It's a good statue, and you can see the lake where the water where the plane was plummeted. And when you go into the available viewing area, which is they charge admission for that. I mean that. I guess it's a moneymaker for people. You see the horror that is just incredible on that. On the description of the concrete, it's kind of in quasi steps, and you're strapped to it. It's old concrete. It's got all kinds of things bulging out of it. And there's another prisoner in there in a cell, and he doesn't get much notice, but they did talk back and forth. He was in there day and night without sleeping in his own waste.
And
Right.
for anyone
What horror.
Yes, it
to
was horrible,
criticize
and
this,
he handled it with more courage than anybody could imagine. I just can't even understand how he was able to endure it all and came out and is still, if I may say so, a wonderful human being and does not deserve to be attacked.
and we should
by this
mention
guy.
that Donald Trump got 5 deferments. He actively sought to keep himself out of Vietnam.
This is not a pro-Trump group, I gather, John.
Well, the
Look,
record.
Look,
it
everybody
may-
knows he shouldn't have said that about McCain. He didn't say he wasn't a hero. But what gets me is, why are people still trying to drive this guy out of the race?
No,
It's because what he's
nobody's-
saying about the border, what he's saying about trade,
No.
what he's
Matt,
saying about the
questioning
political
him.
establishment.
5 years of
questioning
that.
him.
Look,
5
I know
years
it,
of
John.
it. Okay, King Trump.
Mr. Trump is a graduate of the prestigious Wharton School of Finance. Mr. Trump says he has amassed a, quote, $10 billion, end quote, business empire in real estate, airlines, casinos, hotels, and the entertainment industry. Mr. Trump has more business experience in creating jobs than any presidential candidate in the history of this nation.
Does Mr. Trump's business acumen strengthen his presidential credentials? Mort Zuckerman.
Well, to a degree, but that's not the only thing that we're all commenting about. It's not his business acumen. We're talking about his political lack of acumen, if I may say so, and his personal lack of acumen. I simply cannot forgive somebody who says what he says about a man like John McCain. It just is absolutely outrageous.
But you
He
called
should
him a
be
clown.
using-
You
he-
called him a clown on the front page of your paper with a big nose when he announced before he made the statement about McCain.
But
You see, I don't
No, but he
determine
said
what's
so
on the
many of
front
this.
page of the Daily
This-
News.
he
That
said
was
so
the-
many of
the
these
Daily
things.
News.
I know, it's the editor who
Right.
owns
And
the
this
front
is,
page.
this is the thing as well with Trump, and this is why I agree with Pat in the sense that why is he generating a populist feeling? Because of immigration. But you know what, people, and this is why I hope he's in the debate, because I hope other Republicans will stand up and say, you're not a Republican, because the idea of making Mexico build a wall, that sounds great, but people are being petulant. I wrote a piece this week saying it's like being in Neverland, Peter Pan. You need to check challenge people
the
on the
Ameri-
merits. It's
Look,
stupid policy.
I was
Blow
arguing
up
for,
the oil
hold it,
fields.
I was arguing for a fence on the border 25 years ago. It has never been done by either party.
Right.
Republicans. People are fed up with Republicans and
Trump
Democrats.
says he'll get the Mexicans to pay for it. I'd like to hear some more
I don't
about
think he's
his
going to
policy
get the Mexicans
and
to
how
pay for it.
That's what he
but
said.
I bet you he would
Like
build
to-
the wall. Don't you think so?
No, I don't.
hold on, please.
I don't. He couldn't get enough illegal labor to do it.
Will Trump recover because?
Recover. He's
Yeah,
at 24.
recover.
He's leading, John.
Well, I mean that.
Recover his integrity.
Recover his integrity because, and this is the way he's doing it. He is putting some money into the Veterans Administration, and they're going to have a review of hospital scandals
That's if
and
he's
treatment
elected.
of vets.
That's not.
Isn't
now.
that a smart move? Huh?
That's if he's elected, I think.
I think
Is
no,
he doing,
I
if he's
think what
putting
the
the money in
Republican-
now, I will change my
The
view
Republican
of him.
Party agrees
I think
about
he is.
immigration reform
That's
now.
the way I'm
Right.
reading this report.
Nobody trusts him.
USA Today recently reported that the VA's 150 hospitals are short some 41,000, get that, 500 medical personnel. As a result, the VA had a cost overrun of $2.6 billion. That's pocket change for Trump last year because it needed to refer vets
the
to our
VA
state.
is a huge
Trump should promise to
problem area.
appoint one of his apprentices to shake up the VA. Maybe it's
Trump-
not a done deal.
You got to be a president of the United States to shake up
Yeah,
the VA,
yeah.
Exit
and I don't know
question.
who can do it.
If Trump wins the Republican nomination, what will be Trump's biggest challenge in the general election? One word, please.
Hillary Clinton.
Himself.
Hillary, one word.
Really? Yeah. You think that's it?
It's himself.
He'll have
right.
to run against someone else. That's
Himself.
another good answer.
Or
himself.
alternatively, his opponent. He's going to lose by a
Right.
large margin.
I think you're probably right. But I don't think he's going to lose.
No, I don't think he's going to get the nomination. It'll be the end of the
I
Republican
think it's
Party.
too early to tell.
The
It's a
threat,
long, it's a long
threat
shot.
is he's going to run third
Issue
party.
3, terror in Turkey.
On behalf of my people, I curse and condemn the perpetrators of this brutality.
The civil war in Syria has come north. In a Monday bomb attack on the town of Suruk in southern Turkey, Islamic State ISIS terrorists killed 32 and wounded dozens more. Then on Wednesday, 2 police officers were killed. Then on Thursday, ISIS terrorists killed a Turkish border officer. ISIS is believed to have staged the attacks in retaliation for recent Kurd successes against ISIS in Syria. The attack in Suruk, southern Turkey, may carry major ramifications. Turkey's president, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, has threatened to invade Syria, and it's a threat that shouldn't be taken lightly. President Erdogan has long despised Syria leader Bashar al-Assad for allegedly killing hundreds of thousands of Sunnis during Syria's civil war. Assad was not responsible for Monday's attack. And there's another development. In recent months, Saudi Arabia has talked about possible military operations against Syria and the jihadists in Syria. The Saudis fear that if Assad's pro-Iran government prevails, Iran's regional power will grow without control, thus threatening the Saudis. The stakes are high. If Turkey and Saudi Arabia both intervene in Syria, Iran may also intervene militarily, thus making a new conflict in an already very unstable Middle East. All of this agitation is the background for the latest development, namely that Turkey is contemplating the construction, get this, of a wall 560 miles long separating Turkey and Syria at their borders.
Question: do the terrorist attacks in Turkey signal an escalation by ISIS?
Yes.
Tom Rogan.
Yes, ISIS is about the purity of a global Salafi jihadist empire. That's what they're doing. This was inevitable at some point. It's finally forced the Turks to wake up and know that they have to face down this threat. Hopefully they're going to allow American basing to project power. But ultimately, again, it's about Iran. It's about politicization of sectarianism. It's why I think we have to be focused on a broader strategy in the region.
Well, this is Turkey's fight, and the core of President Obama's strategy is to get the countries in the region to put boots on the ground. And this may lead to that. I think ISIS may have escalated the fight, but they brought in a serious foe.
ISIS made a terrible mistake here.
Yeah.
If you bring the Turks in, John, they got an army of 500,000. If you put that army together, they could take out Raqqa in 3 days marching into Syria. It depends. I hope the Americans, Incirlik is a great benefit for the United States. It's anti-ISIS. I think this could be a turning point against ISIS, depending on how deeply the Turks go in, because the Turks could finish ISIS.
And they want Assad gone as well, though. That's the thing. And
yeah,
I think that's
I don't think they can do both.
They can't.
No,
with the Saudis.
ISIS, yeah, that's right. That's right.
What's the military significance of Turkey allowing the U.S. to launch airstrikes from its bases? What?
Well, I think it's just another dimension of what Turkey is determined to do, which is to use military pressure against ISIS and some of the people whom they don't like. And they have been really aroused by what ISIS has done in Turkey.
Well,
they acknowledge now that it is a terrorist strike as far as they're concerned, and they're not going to live that way.
They wouldn't let the U.S. use that base because the Obama administration wouldn't commit to going after Assad. And I think now that Turkey is realizing that they can't make that the dominant goal, that defeating ISIS is more problematical.
What's the meaning of ISIS?
The Islamic State of Iraq and Al-Sham, or Greater Syria, the Levant. But it's a global project.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people might not be aware of, what ISIS is. Multiple choice, exit question. How likely is a large Turkish invasion of Syria? A Turkish invasion of Syria. Is it A, inevitable, B, highly likely, C, somewhat likely, D, unlikely, or E, so far-fetched as to be inconceivable?
Somewhat likely they'll be moving in.
C, I think that's what.
Yeah,
C.
Yeah. I'd say it'll be B. I think the Turks are really in a rage over this thing. They're just going to go in and do something.
C.
C? C plus. Issue 4, unplanned parenthood.
It's been years since I've talked about compensation, so let me just figure out what others are getting at. If this is in the ballpark, and that's fine. If it's still low, then we can talk about it. You would. I want a Lamborghini. I said I want a Lamborghini.
Mary Gatter, who up until 2014 was president of Planned Parenthood for America, speaking to an undercover activist from the anti-abortion group, the Center for Medical Progress. Ms. Gatter now serves Planned Parenthood in an advisory leadership position. This video is the second of its kind in as many weeks. Last week, the Center for Medical Progress released a video of another Planned Parenthood official speaking about fetal matter, Deborah Nucatola.
I'm going to throw a number out. I would say it's probably anywhere from $30 to $100, depending on the facility and what's involved.
The $30 to $100 price, that's per specimen that we're talking about, right? Yeah.
Yes.
But Planned Parenthood insists the videos were edited to misrepresent its position, and they say the discussion of finances referring to processing costs are legal. Here's Cecile Richard, president of Planned Parenthood.
The allegation that Planned Parenthood profits in any way from tissue donation is not true.
Planned Parenthood receives tens of millions of dollars in federal tax dollars each year and has received over $200 million since 2012. While the organization is prevented from using federal funds for abortions, those funds nevertheless allow Planned Parenthood to use its own funds on abortions.
Question, what fetal specimens are being sold by Planned Parenthood for $30 to $100 each? Well, you want to try that, Eleanor?
Yeah, that's for storage and shipping. And I acknowledge that listening to them talk about this in what seems to be a very callous way is disturbing. But these are tissues and fetal organs where the women have given their permission. Many of them get great comfort from thinking that this can go to help someone else. The drug companies do research with this. That's how we get cures. And these were edited in a way to make it seem as though Planned Parenthood is selling this, and that is illegal. So that's not happening, but it's a continuation of the abortion debate that we have in this country. And Planned Parenthood delivers very many health services to women around the country, and I think it's a tragedy that they're now once again going to be the center of attempts, mostly by the right, to try to defund them entirely.
I mean, John, look, you and I grew up in a generation where if we heard a woman talking on film describing how you crush the top of the unborn child, crush the bottom in order to preserve the liver and the heart and the lungs, really valuable parts. This is how we do it, sipping wine and having a salad. We would say this is something that really belongs not in the USA, but belongs in Nazi Germany in the 1930s.
This is how medical professionals talk. There was
it
sounded very callous to that, but you know, if you heard any kind of surgery described graphically, you'd be pretty repelled as well. And I want to say one more thing. A physician who wrote in, I think, to the New York Times said that he worked in a unit with seriously ill babies, and in the morning they would ask the question, how many babies did you box last night?
Right.
That means put in coffins.
Well, one of the
pretty
problems
grotesque,
with this video, though, is the fact
this
that
is how
one of the
medical
ladies
professionals
was
talk
talking,
among themselves.
But she talked, it has to be worth it for me, which suggested a personal incentive beyond the storage element.
I don't believe anybody has been proved to profit from this, and I would welcome the hearings on Capitol Hill. Let them have the hearings.
Yeah.
They're going to find that Planned Parenthood did nothing illegal.
I actually tend to think, you know, because conservative rhetoric on social issues has been very problematic before, for understandable reasons, especially to young women, but I tend to think on this, conservatives have an opportunity here to articulate the moral angle.
Senator Rand Paul introduced legislation this week to defund Planned Parenthood by attaching an amendment to H.R. 22, the federal highway bill. Will his gambit succeed? I ask you.
It's got a fighting chance, John, because an awful lot of Americans don't believe we ought to fund organizations that kill babies in order to get their body parts.
If the Republicans turn this into a top-line issue going into the 2016 election, it will be a loser for them because a majority of Americans support a woman's right to have an abortion in the early stages of a pregnancy.
Prediction, Pat.
ISIS will attack in Iraq in Haditha and will be attacked itself in Ramadi.
Rick Perry's forceful and artful denunciation of Trump will give him enough of a bump that he will make it into the top 10 for the Fox News debate on August 6th.
I'm going to extend that. Rick Perry will do very well in the debate because of his clear record of conservative success in governance in Texas versus California.
The dramatic increase in the number of low-paid jobs in this country is going to cause a major review of how we enhance the growth of the economy.
When the world's biggest hedge fund, Bridgewater Associates, told investors to steer clear of China this week, it marked the beginning of a major economic reversal for Beijing. China's stock market meltdown will inflict deep damage on its economy, dealing a severe setback to Xi Jinping's China dream. That's a prediction. Bye-bye.